Hello and welcome back to Off the Post. In today's episode, I'll be discussing will the 3-year curse come back to haunt Unai Emery at Aston Villa. But before that, as always, please like, comment and subscribe, it's very much appreciated and it goes a long way in helping me build a small community on my channel, okay? We've recently just hit 229 subscribers and I just want to say a massive thank you for all the support on my most recent videos, all the likes and the comments on social media as well. It definitely does go unnoticed, and yeah, let's get straight into the episode, shall we? I truly do believe that Aston Villa's troubles all stem back from last season, okay? Losing against Manchester United on the last game of the season really meant that Aston Villa didn't qualify for Champions League football, did they? And, it was such a disappointing result, okay? Whether that was a Morgan Rogers sort of controversial penalty decision that didn't go Aston Villa's way, whatever the reason it was, right? Aston Villa only needed one victory to get the Champions League football over the line, and we just couldn't do it. And now that resulted in a terrible transfer window because we didn't have that Champions League money to spend on those players to improve our squad and whatnot. So from that point of view, it really did mean that, we had loads of PSR problems and we had to sell some of our star players in Jacob Ramsey, obviously joining Newcastle, Leon Bailey joining AS Roma on loan. We had a massive transfer cycle with Emi Martinez, who was potentially joining a Saudi League club or a Manchester United who was heavily linked with as well. So from that point of view, it really did mean that Aston Villa couldn't spend that much needed money to bring in those players to adapt and develop their team. At the start of the season, Aston Villa played 5 games, drew 3 and lost 2, okay? We're still waiting for our first victory over the line. We scored our first goal in game week 5, okay? What on earth is that? Don't get me wrong, okay? From a defensive point of view, I don't think we've been awful. That might sound a little bit stupid just because, okay, we've conceded a lot of goals. We haven't won a game yet. We've lost 2 games. We've only drew 3 as well. We're in the bottom 3 in the Premier League for the first time in about how many years? I don't know. Under when we got relegated under Paul Lambert, Tim Sherwood, whoever it was, Remy Gard, I think it was back in the day. It just goes to show the excellent job Unai Emery has done last season and for the last 2 to 3 years. Okay, for me, he's been absolutely excellent. He's a star man in charge of Aston Villa, and he's took us from being a mid-table team to fighting for Europa League, fighting for Champions League positions. And for me, they can't get rid of him because he's absolutely amazing. He's the star man for Aston Villa behind the whole scenes, okay? And yes, of late they've just sacked Monchi, or he's set to leave the club, okay? So from that point of view, he's our sporting director in the team. He's sort of in charge of the transfers, who's coming in, who's coming out and whatnot. And he has brought in some half-decent players over the couple of years, but he's also brought in a few players that some fans might see as not really that good, if you like, as well. So from that point of view, Monchi, for me, I do like him. I feel like he's brought in and he has developed better players, and he's brought in good people as well, if you like, into the club to sort of help us on our fantastic run of late. However, on the pitch this season, it's just been so disappointing, hasn't it? To be honest, I did not expect this one bit. I thought Aston Villa were going to, yes, probably get a draw against Newcastle, but I thought we was going to beat Brentford. I thought we was going to beat Crystal Palace. I thought, looking at Everton from last season at least, I thought we could go on and beat Everton as well, but obviously it hasn't planned out that way. Losing in the Carabao Cup as well. We've spoken as fans for so long. A good cup run is so important, and losing against Brentford in the first round of the first and second round of the Carabao Cup is absolutely abysmal, okay? For whatever reason, I just don't know what it is. Yes, we lost on penalties, but we was not good enough in the 90 minutes, were we? Honestly, it was so disappointing in those couple of games. We spoke about, a cup run being so essential to Aston Villa, trying to get back on those records. Obviously, Newcastle done it a few seasons ago. Crystal Palace did it as well recently, where, they was winning cup competitions, and you really did think those sort of middle of the table teams could have gone and done it again this season. Aston Villa, I don't want to say favourites, but probably had an outside chance of actually going on and winning the cup competition this season. Don't get me wrong, they're still in the FA Cup, so potentially they can do that this season as well if Unai Emery can sort of get those Aston Villa players back playing to their best. Hopefully he can. For me, there was a lot of uproar at the start of the season with that Emi Martinez transfer saga, where he was potentially leaving the club and whatnot, so he had to sit out the first 2 to 3 games, of course. Bizot, okay, he sort of come in and he did all right. He conceded a few goals here and there that you probably would have thought to yourself, yes, Emi Martinez would have saved them. He's a half decent shot stopper. Bizot, he's just not good enough playing out from the back with his feet, is he? For me, I just don't know whether or not he will suit that Unai Emery's sort of system and how he wants to play from out the back and build up from out the back. But we've got him Martinez, so we don't need to worry about that. He was absolutely excellent in that game against Everton, wasn't he? Where he was pulling off saves galore, absolutely, exceptional saves that you probably would expect from his world-class ability. Okay, don't get me wrong, I still feel like he is probably one of the best goalkeepers in the world, in the Premier League as well. I'll definitely say top 5 in the Premier League at least. I don't think he's better than, David Raya or Donnarumma or Alisson by any stretch of the imagination. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to, get too ahead of myself and saying that he's, one of the best. He's better than them, but I think he is top 5 still in the league. It's just a tricky one because our new signings as well, in the likes of Evan Gossard, he hasn't really impressed me that much of late. Don't get me wrong, he's coming with a lot of potential from League One. He had a fantastic season last season, getting 20 goal contributions and whatnot. It's absolutely amazing. However, he looks very raw in the Premier League, doesn't he? Don't get me wrong, he does have a bit of pace. He can beat a player sometimes, but when he gets into those final third positions, he sort of lacks that awareness to sort of, commit the right decision, to do the right decision, whether that's, that final pass, whether that's crossing to the box, whether that's cutting inside. He just seems to get tackled at the last minute, you know what I mean? So for me, Evan Gossard, he does look good, but I'd rather see a Harvey Elliott or Jadon Sancho, someone who's a little bit more, who knows the Premier League at least anyways. And when we talk about those two lone players, in Jadon Sancho and Harvey Elliott, again, they've looked decent in spells, but it's only been spells, and of course they need to build up their fitness, they need to build up those minutes in the legs and whatnot, so hopefully sooner rather than later they can sort of start playing in that starting 11, okay, because I really do feel like that will benefit Aston Villa's team. For me, in the short time we've seen Harvey Elliott, I think he's probably been one of our best players so far this season. We scored our first goal against who was it? I think it was Brentford the other day, wasn't it? In the Carabao Cup, and then obviously Matty Cash scored against Sunderland at the weekend. And for me, if we did just quickly talk about that Sunderland game, okay, it was a bit of a tricky one because again it was more of the same where, defensively we was okay for the majority of the game, but it was just attacking wise we couldn't seem to find our feet. We couldn't get going. We couldn't create the chances in the final third to sort of create those goal scoring opportunities. Ollie Watkins looks off the pace, Morgan Rogers looks off the pace, Buendia looks off the pace, Darnell Marlon looks off the pace. I can say it for pretty much every single Aston Villa player on there at the moment, can't I? I don't know why I can't put my finger on it. I generally can't put my finger on it. I just don't know why we're playing so bad as we were last season. Don't get me wrong, we had a few injuries in the likes of Youri Tillemans, Onana, Kamara in midfield, so you could argue that we haven't had our main starting 11 in there so far this season. So hopefully now, when we had a few players back from injury, obviously Kamara's back, we don't know how long Tillemans or Onana are out for. Hopefully it's just a couple of weeks. I'm pretty sure it's not a massive injury at least anyways. In that Sunderland game, with a pretty good stay in the game, and then get our first goal through Matty Cash, who sort of did score a screamer. He's known to take a notorious long shot, isn't he? And he scored a screamer from outside the box. So it was a good shot. Question marks do have to be put on the goalkeeper, don't they, for Sunderland, the Dutch goalkeeper. For me, the shot was pretty much straight down the middle, wasn't it? And for whatever reason, he sort of just parried it into the top corner. I just didn't understand that, to be honest with you. Question marks do need to be raised about him. Don't get me wrong, he's had a strong start of the season. I think he's got the most saves in the Premier League this season, I'm pretty sure. The Dutch goalkeeper for Sunderland. What's his name? Like Roofs or something like that. So hopefully he can sort of come good the next game week if he does start for them. But yeah, for me, Sunderland are absolutely exceptional. Okay, I feel like they're going to stay in the Premier League with absolute ease. I don't feel like they're going to be in a relegation battle whatsoever. However, saying that, you've got to think about most of their signings. They will feature in the African Cup of Nations, I'm pretty sure. So will they be able to sort of adapt to, losing those players in January? I don't know. I feel like that's the real time period where you've got to sort of make it count. If Sunderland can put up early points on the board so far until January, maybe they'll be all right when they do miss those players. I don't know. Let me guys know in the comments down below if you do think the African Cup of Nations will sort of impact Sunderland's team. But yeah, just moving over to Aston Villa quickly, end the episode on Aston Villa. Unai Emery is our star man. We can't get rid of him whatsoever. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how you judge him. For me, he's the difference maker at Aston Villa. He's gone from being a mid-table team to a Europa League team to a Champions League team. So for whatever reason, I don't care what it is. Okay, for me, Unai Emery is the main person to take us forward. Yes, there might be a 3-year curse. Yes, we might have a little bit of a drop off from last season. But if we can get our star players back fit, fighting fit, back scoring goals, we just need one game to sort of motivate us to get the victory over the line, to sort of take that into the Premier League. Our next game is against Bologna in the Europa League game on Thursday night. So hopefully we can sort of score some goals, get a win under our belt to give us that momentum to build on and to sort of take that into the Premier League. Our next fixture against Fulham is tricky. Fulham is a hard place to go to. Of course, it's at Villa Park, so that's a little bit easier, some might say. However, they've got some star players themselves as well, in Iwobi, in Muniz, in Emil Smith-Rowe, that can definitely hurt Aston Villa's defence. So hopefully, we can do a decent job there as well. But for me, if you think about Unai Emery a few seasons ago at Sevilla, he had a terrible start to the season where he didn't actually win that many games either. He drew loads and he lost games in the first 5 games as well, I'm pretty sure. So from that point of view, maybe you can have a comparison to this season, because he went on and actually won the Europa League for the first time in a long time for Seville in La Liga. So for me, of course, hopefully, it's more hope rather than anything, isn't it, at the end of the day? Because this start of the season is absolutely embarrassing from Aston Villa. I did not expect it, but hopefully Aston Villa can have the same sort of run like Unai Emery had with Sevilla back in the day when they won their first Europa League for a while at least, anyways. So yeah, that's what we're going to end the video. Let's end the video with some questions, okay? Do you feel like the 3-year curse will be haunting Unai Emery this season? Do you feel like he could potentially get sacked at Aston Villa if, it doesn't look up his ideas? When do you feel like Aston Villa will get their first win on the belt? Do you feel like they just need one victory to, spur on that momentum in the Premier League? Do you feel like there'll be more of a cup competition team this season? Do you think they'll do good in the Europa League? Yeah, those are all my questions, but before that, as always, please like, comment and subscribe. It's very much appreciated, and it goes a long way in helping me build a small community on my channel. We've recently just hit 229 subscribers, and I just want to say a massive thank you for the support on our most recent videos, all the likes and the comments on social media as well. It definitely doesn't go unnoticed, and yeah, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.